Good afternoon. You can be anything that you want to be. And the wonderful thing about it is that take that idea and go as many different directions as you want. It's so much fun. And you continue to learn skills so that as you're moving forward and taking new directions, you have things you never dreamed that are going to work for you. But one thing worries me, and that's those of you, particularly children, who don't have anyone motivating you. When I was born, my right foot and leg were injured. Now, I was okay intellectually, but I was just a little slow. And I think the easiest way to explain it to you physically is I was like Nemo. I strongly connected with Nemo, and I thought when that character came out, oh, right. And my mom was just like his dad in the early years, right there. But I have to confess, all that changed. One day, my mother came in the kitchen door. We were living with my grandmother at that time, and I have a sister that's older. And here's the surprise she gave us. Tell me if you were ready. This is your new stepfather. I never saw the man before in my life. Then she said, get your things. So I got an empty dolly suitcase and a doll. And in minutes, we were in the car. And my grandparents are outside in the driveway watching us go. I'd lived with them for probably almost 4 years. And I didn't know what to think. And then my mother said, not only are we moving from our small town in what I call Missouri, but we are moving to a city, Kansas City, Missouri. We'd never lived anywhere like that. Well, one move turned into two, and the second one took us to the back of a grocery store where my stepfather worked in the front, and my mother had also had a job. And people would bang on the glass at night wanting in to buy something on tab, because very few people used charge cards if they even had been invented by that time. So there was a lot of money coming in, and we hadn't quite adjusted to life yet. It was still a little scary, especially with people banging on the window in the middle of the night. So you think, well, what worse can happen to you than having grown up in a small town, moved to a city, to a strange place, starting your second new school in a month? Well, something worse happened. No one picked me up from school. And I didn't know how to get home, not really. I didn't know how to cross a big street. We got that taken care of right away. I got across the street. I got honked at a lot. I was really scared. Got to the other side, and I thought, well, now what? But I just kept looking back, trying to remember which way I should go. And way in the distance, I saw these 4 little boys, and I thought, okay, I know where they're going. They're going to turn left pretty soon, and when they turn left, I go 1 block further. Well, I'd had about all the trauma I could take for the day, but I got to the grocery store front door, and it was open like it was supposed to be, but my stepfather wasn't there. There weren't any customers. Nobody was robbing the place. So I went to the back where we lived. I said, Mama, Stanley, Judy? Nothing. To be honest with you, it was about 2 hours before anybody came home. My stepfather and mother, I had seen blood, by the way, there was blood, had said that my mother almost died and that I couldn't go see her because I was too young. Well, I got past that, but here again, I thought, that's all the trauma that I can deal with. I didn't really think that. I didn't even know the word trauma, but right now I'm saying it. That's all the trauma that a child should have to deal with. Well, we moved again. We went back to our hometown. Things had gotten worse. My mother was constantly working, and a lot of women can identify with this, was constantly working or making a costume or trying to get dinner ready or doing the wash, so she was there. We didn't see a lot of her. But we moved back to our hometown, and here again, we were just starting into things, but going into third grade, I was not the same child. I was kind of like this, and I didn't do anything but sharpen my pencils. I was really good at that. I felt like a little dead person, if you can imagine that. One day, the third grade teacher got tired of that, and she comes down the aisle toward my seat. You know, some of you know that feeling. And she really let me have it. She took me to task. Thank God. But basically what she told me, in her own way, was that I was smart. And she said, there's no reason you should be failing your spelling tests every week because you're smart enough that you could learn these words and you could get 100 every single day. And then she takes out her Band-Aids and puts Band-Aids on my thumb so I couldn't put it in my mouth. So that got rid of that pleasantry in my life. Well, where do you go from there? While I'm thinking about that, she goes up to the front of the class, and she changed my life. She said to the whole class, I want you to write a story tonight. Dr. Frankenstein's monster's electricity appeared above my head. I don't think anybody else could see it, but I could see it. I knew it. I could feel it. It was warm. She said, I want you to bring them back tomorrow and read them in class. I thought, I can do that. So I went home that night and I wrote the story of the first dried apple. How's that for a title? And the next day, when I got to school, I could hardly wait for her to start talking to us. She said, who wants to go first? Had never raised my hand, I don't think, in my life, at least for that purpose. She had given me an identity, and it was an identity that I hadn't discovered on my own yet. Well, guess what happened? I became a good student. I wanted to be a doctor. Got my stuff together at home. I had my Vicks and my peroxide and alcohol and my bandages and kept everybody cough drops, well medicated and ready to go. Then we got a little closer to high school and the algebra thing came in there, and that's a time at which one is asked to mix the alphabet with the who thought of that anyway? But I figured I'm never going to be a doctor, probably can't be a nurse, because they're going to at some point say, well, did you take algebra? So I chose the major where I thought it would be most successful, because I also love theater. Shy for theater, who knows? But I started college eventually as an English major. And I want to tell you, things just continued to happen. I started out as a teacher. I absolutely loved it. Teaching took me to newspaper. I had a column. Later on, I became a correspondent. Eventually, I was an editor. On down the road, and all of these are skills I've picked up. By the time I was applying for a job for hospital public relations, I wanted to say that right, and marketing, I had all these other things to take with me. Like, they loved it that I had theater. I'd talk to people because I was going to get to go all over the hospital. I'd had a little hospital tinkering before then because I'd been able to go in and interview people, doctors, nurses, volunteers. So I was still loving it. So eventually, the job in hospital public relations and marketing took me to the elevator. You might think that's a strange place to have another epiphany. But I jumped on the elevator, and there is the hospital chaplain, shaking a little bit, and said, are you all right? And he explained to me that there was a terrible crisis in the emergency room, and he was going to have to go down there and comfort a bus driver and a family and so many things. And I took his hands. Let me pray for you this time. And it dawned on me. I mean, I felt it again, like, I had another epiphany, and that was what you love about hospitals is the caring and the love and the answers, and what you really need to do is become a hospital chaplain. Now, but by the time I'd done all these other things, I was getting along in life, right? But I started a seminary, actually here in Tulsa, went to Phillips Theological Seminary, and I graduated 6 months before my 60th birthday. I became ultimately a chaplain at Tulsa Cancer Treatment Centers of Tulsa. I don't know why I have all these great long things in my speech, but Cancer Treatment Centers of America in Tulsa. Best job I ever had. And I said that one day, and somebody said, I have a feeling every job you have is the best job that you ever had. So when the hospital shut its doors here, I loved being a chaplain, but I thought, here I am in the winter of my life. And I've continued to write, but I've never been a full-time writer. So I thought, I'm going to become a full-time fiction writer. And by golly, I did. I have published 5 books. Yes, I did it on my own. We can argue about that if you want to. The Joe McGregor series, and it sounds great. And it starts out in small town Missouri, and then eventually when they're searching for Melvin in the search for Melvin, they do come into Tulsa. Because when I go to bookstores and put out my little table, people say, well, have you got anything in it about Tulsa? And this time I was able to say, yes, they're looking for Melvin in Tulsa, and his family has eaten at Pennington's downtown and went to the old library that named Carnegie because, people like to hear about Tulsa. So I want you to know right now I'm doing 2 of my favorite things in the world, still writing, still a fiction writer, but I love watching my grown children be a success, and I love watching my grandchildren follow in their footsteps. I don't know any time in my life I've been happier except when my kids were growing up and were home with me. And I can't believe it, but if you've ever gotten depressed about your birthday or where you are in life, don't waste your time, girl, kids, men. You got some living to do, and by golly, I'm doing it. Thank you.